The United Nations General has condemned the latest move by Russia to illegally annex some regions in Ukraine. Russia has so far occupied 4 regions since the beginning of the conflict. The UN has since urged other countries not to recognize the occupation. Joining us is Professor John Stremlau, international relations expert, to give us more clarity and expansion on this matter. Professor Stremlau, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. What do you make of these latest developments? Just looking at, the UN condemning Russia's move to annex parts of Ukraine. In fact, the response from Ukraine's UN ambassador, was one of excitement, as I read what he said here, saying that it shows that Russia could not intimidate the world.
Well, look, this is a very tricky problem for the international community, especially given the ineffectiveness of the United Nations. This was a General Assembly, which is to say non-enforceable resolution. It passed 143 votes, 5 against, and 35 abstentions, of which South Africa was one of the abstaining.
Yes.
And it is an affront to Article 2, which the South African ambassador acknowledged and said that they are not for the invasion of a UN member, an independent sovereign state. But nevertheless, this should be taken up by the Security Council. But the Russians have a veto on this outdated Security Council. So at least it gives another reason for South Africa's call to reform the Security Council.
Now, with South Africa abstaining from this, I mean, South Africa wasn't the only country to abstain. China, India, as well as Pakistan were also abstaining. What does this now speak to in terms of messaging and the position that South Africa continues to take?
I don't really know. I understand what the ambassador said. And while on the one hand endorsing Article 2 of the UN Charter against the violation of a sovereign member, it at the same time abstained because it thought it would not be constructive for the peace process. I don't see any prospects for a peace process right now, to tell you the truth. But it is a dilemma for the international community to have a Security Council member violating that second article of the UN Charter, which is the sanctitude of the territorial integrity and sovereign equality. So you go round and round on this, and I suspect, but I don't know any facts, that Cyril Ramaphosa's unwillingness to abide by the Zuma-Gupta nuclear deal with the Russians probably made Putin very angry, and Putin has had a record of playing favorites within the U.S. election, Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, and then Donald Trump over Joe Biden. It wasn't successful in the second round, but the Mueller report shows how extensive the Russian involvement was. And we've got an election that's going to be very, very tight coming up here. And if I was Cyril Ramaphosa, I wouldn't want Russia messing around with it. So maybe that's the price for abstaining. I don't know.
And what do you believe here to be, some of the biggest challenges when it comes to discussions around, the international community, the UN saying, urging other countries not to recognize the occupation, condemning this latest move by Russia? Well,
the Russians are not happy that there are only 5 votes against presumably against the resolution, but they really don't care. In fact, the international community right now is deferring to the battlefront because that's where the action is. That's where the NATO assistance, military assistance to a very courageous, heroic, and abused Ukrainian civilian population is fighting against the superior Russian forces and seeming to make progress and maybe even could win this one. I don't know. It's too early to say, but the vital lines have shifted, and that's where the action is. There's nothing that Gutierrez, even though it's nice for the South African ambassador to call for Gutierrez to mediate this dispute, Putin doesn't seem ready to mediate, and neither does Zelensky.
Very well. Thank you so much for your inclusion in this discussion. Professor John Stremlau, international relations expert, weighing in on these latest moves.